Hello, story lovers! Tonight we're diving into a tale of passion, secrets, and choices that could change everything. Hearts will be broken, love will be tested, and every twist will leave you on the edge of your seat. Comment below where you're watching from, and if this story moves you, hit like, subscribe, share it with someone who loves a powerful love story, and tap the bell so you never miss the next thrilling chapter. Ready? Let's begin. The autumn rain hammered against the cracked windows of the small apartment in Queens, creating a steady rhythm that matched Rachel Hartwell's racing heartbeat. She sat on the worn couch, clutching a cold cup of coffee, watching the city lights blur through the wet glass. At 24, she had imagined her life would be different by now. Instead, she was about to face a conversation that would change everything. The apartment door opened and her father Thomas stepped inside, shaking water from his jacket. His face, usually warm and optimistic, carried a weight that made Rachel's stomach twist with worry. She had seen that expression only once before, when her mother Diana had collapsed at the grocery store 6 months ago. "Rachel, sweetheart, we need to talk," Thomas said quietly, removing his soaked coat. His hands trembled slightly as he hung it on the hook by the door. "What happened, Dad?" Rachel asked, setting down her cup. Her pulse quickened as she watched him struggle to find words. Thomas sat across from her, his weathered hands clasped together. "The construction company is shutting down next month. After 35 years, they're closing the doors." Her father's income had been the backbone of their family, especially with her mother's mounting medical bills from the heart surgery. Rachel's salary as an administrative assistant at a small marketing firm barely covered groceries. "We'll figure something out," Rachel said, though her voice lacked conviction. "I can look for a second job, maybe work weekends." "There's another option," Thomas interrupted, finally meeting her eyes. "The Pierce family has made an offer." Rachel frowned. "The Pierce family? The real estate people? I worked on their first commercial building 20 years ago," Thomas explained. "Richard Pierce never forgot how I helped him during a crisis with the contractors. He's offering to help us now, but there's a condition." "What kind of condition?" "His son Julian is 36 and unmarried. Richard believes Julian needs a wife with strong values, someone from a good family. He's proposing an arranged marriage." "An arranged marriage?" Rachel stood abruptly, her coffee cup clattering to the floor. "Dad, this is America in 2025, not some historical drama. People don't do that anymore." "When your mother needs medication that costs more than I make in 3 months, people do whatever they have to," Thomas said, his voice cracking. "I wouldn't ask if there was any other way, Rachel. I really wouldn't." Rachel stared at her father, seeing the desperation in his eyes, the weight of impossible choices crushing him. She thought of her mother, growing weaker each day, the hospital bills stacked on the kitchen counter like a monument to their powerlessness. "What does he get out of this?" Rachel asked quietly. "A wife who isn't after his money. Someone real. And what do I get, besides being sold like property?" Thomas flinched at her words. "Your mother gets to live. We keep our home. You get financial security you've never known." Rachel walked to the window, pressing her forehead against the cold glass. Outside, the city glittered with 1,000 lights, each one representing a life, a choice, a path not taken. "When do I meet him?" 3 days later, Rachel stood outside one of Manhattan's most exclusive restaurants. She had borrowed a navy dress from her cousin and spent an hour watching makeup tutorials on her phone. Now staring at the elegant entrance, she felt completely out of place. Thomas squeezed her hand. "Just be yourself, honey. That's all anyone can ask." Inside, the restaurant was a world away from the diners and pizza places Rachel frequented. Crystal chandeliers cast soft light over white tablecloths and well-dressed diners who spoke in hushed, refined tones. A hostess guided them to a private corner table where 2 men waited. Rachel recognized Richard Pierce from business magazines. The older man stood with practiced elegance, his silver hair perfectly styled. But it was the younger man beside him who captured Rachel's attention. Julian Pierce was tall and broad-shouldered, wearing a charcoal suit that probably cost more than Rachel's monthly rent. His dark hair was styled back from a strong face, and his gray eyes studied her with an intensity that made her breath catch. He wasn't just handsome. He was intimidating. "Miss Hartwell," Julian said, extending his hand. His voice was deep and controlled. "Thank you for coming." I'm not sure I had much choice, Rachel replied, shaking his hand. His grip was firm but not aggressive. A flicker of surprise crossed Julian's face, followed by something that might have been respect. Honest. I appreciate that. Richard and Thomas exchanged pleasantries about old times, but Rachel couldn't take her eyes off Julian, who seemed equally focused on her. I assume you know why we're here, Rachel said, once their fathers had settled into reminiscing. To discuss our potential marriage, Julian replied without hesitation. You mean to finalize the terms of me being bought? Julian's lips curved into a slight smile. That's a crude way to put it, but not entirely inaccurate. What do you think about it? I think it's insane, Rachel said. I think no man in his right mind agrees to marry a complete stranger unless something is seriously wrong with him. What's your excuse? Julian leaned back, studying her with renewed interest. I've tried the traditional route. Dated women who were interested in my bank account, my connections, or the Instagram potential of my lifestyle. None of them wanted to know the actual person. And you think an arranged marriage will be different? I think honesty about expectations is better than pretending romance will solve everything, Julian replied. My father believes your family raised you right. That's worth more to me than manufactured chemistry. Rachel felt her defenses weakening slightly. There was something refreshing about his directness, even if his worldview seemed cynical. What would you expect from this arrangement? She asked. Respect, Julian said simply. Discretion. You'd live in my home, but have your own space and freedom. We'd appear together at social functions. Beyond that, we'd figure out boundaries as we go. And if one of us falls in love with someone else? The question hung in the air. Julian's expression tightened almost imperceptibly. Then we'd handle it honestly when it happens. Rachel studied his face, searching for any sign of deception, but found only carefully controlled composure. This man had built walls around himself so high that even he might not remember what lay on the other side. I need 3 days to think about it, Rachel said. Julian nodded. That's fair. But Rachel? He leaned forward, his gray eyes holding hers. Whatever you decide, make sure it's your choice. Not your father's, not mine, yours. As Rachel left the restaurant that night, she felt the weight of an impossible decision settling onto her shoulders. Behind her, Julian watched through the window until she disappeared into the Manhattan night, something stirring in his chest that felt dangerously like hope. Rachel spent the next 3 days in turmoil. She researched Julian Pierce online, finding articles about his real estate empire, charity work, and notably private personal life. There were photos of him at galas with beautiful women, but nothing suggesting a serious relationship. Her phone rang on Thursday morning. Julian's name appeared on the screen. Rachel, I'd like you to see where you'd be living, he said without preamble. Can you come to my place this afternoon? You mean your penthouse in Manhattan? Rachel asked, unable to keep the sarcasm from her voice. It's a townhouse in the Upper East Side. I'll send a car at 3. The car turned out to be a sleek black sedan with a driver named Marcus, who treated Rachel like visiting royalty. As they drove through Manhattan's expensive neighborhoods, Rachel watched the city transform from her familiar working-class areas to tree-lined streets with pristine brownstones. Julian's townhouse was stunning, but not ostentatious. The 4-story building had a classic facade with modern touches. He answered the door himself, dressed casually in dark jeans and a gray sweater that made his eyes look even more striking. Welcome, he said, stepping aside. Come in. The interior was masculine but comfortable, with high ceilings, hardwood floors, and furniture that looked both expensive and actually used. Rachel noticed there were few personal items, giving the space an impersonal quality. You live here alone? Rachel asked as they walked through the main floor. Yes. I have a housekeeper who comes 3 times a week, but otherwise it's just me. He led her upstairs to the 3rd floor and opened a door to a spacious bedroom with large windows overlooking a private garden. The room was decorated in soft grays and blues, elegant without being fussy. This would be yours, Julian said. Your own bathroom, walk-in closet. You could redecorate however you want. Rachel walked to the window, looking down at the peaceful garden. It was like something from a magazine, so different from the fire escape view she had in Queens. Where's your room? She asked. Next floor up. Completely separate. Rachel turned to face him. Julian, can I ask you something personal? Go ahead. Have you ever been in love? The question clearly caught him off guard. His jaw tightened, and he walked to the window beside her, staring out at the garden. Once, he finally said. Her name was Catherine. We met at Columbia when I was getting my MBA. I thought she was the one. What happened? My father had some financial difficulties about 8 years ago. Temporary issues that resolved within months. But Catherine disappeared the moment she thought the money might be gone. She moved on to a hedge fund manager within weeks. Rachel felt unexpected sympathy. That must have hurt. It taught me that honesty about transactions is better than dishonesty about love. Julian turned to face her, his expression unreadable. At least with our arrangement, we both know what we're getting. Do we? Rachel challenged. Because I'm still trying to figure out what you actually want from this. Companionship without pretense. Someone who sees me as a person, not a bank account. Is that really so hard to understand? No, Rachel said softly. It's just sad. Something flickered across Julian's face, a crack in his carefully maintained armor. For a moment, Rachel saw the hurt beneath his cynicism, the boy who had believed in love before it betrayed him. I'll do it, Rachel heard herself say. I'll marry you. Julian's eyes widened slightly. Are you sure? No. But my mother needs help, and you need someone who won't break your heart because she never promised to love you in the first place. It's honest, like you said. Rachel, I don't want you to feel trapped. Then don't trap me, she said, meeting his gaze. Give me one promise. If either of us becomes truly miserable, we end it. No guilt, no blame. We just walk away. Julian extended his hand. Deal. Rachel shook it, sealing a bargain that felt both businesslike and terrifyingly intimate. The wedding took place 6 weeks later at City Hall, a simple civil ceremony with only their fathers present. Rachel wore a cream-colored dress she'd found on sale, while Julian looked devastating in a navy suit. They exchanged vows with the mechanical precision of a business contract. And when Julian kissed her, it was brief and chaste, like sealing an envelope. But that night, as Rachel stood in her new bedroom in the townhouse, staring at her reflection in an unfamiliar mirror, the weight of what she'd done crashed over her. She had married a stranger, sold herself for her mother's life, become the kind of woman she'd always pitied in movies. A soft knock interrupted her spiral. Rachel? Julian's voice came through the door. Can I come in? It's your house. He entered, still wearing his dress shirt and pants, though he'd removed his jacket and tie. In his hands, he carried 2 glasses of wine. I thought you might need this, he said, offering her one. Rachel took it gratefully, drinking half the glass in one swallow. Julian raised an eyebrow but said nothing. This is weird, Rachel said finally. Incredibly weird, Julian agreed. He sat on the edge of her bed, maintaining a careful distance. For what it's worth, I don't expect anything from you tonight, or any night unless you want it. Rachel felt tension she hadn't realized she was carrying leave her shoulders. Thank you. They sat in silence for a moment, drinking wine in a bedroom that belonged to neither of them really. Just 2 strangers bound by paperwork and desperation. Can I tell you something? Rachel asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Anything. I've never done this before. She gestured vaguely at the space between them. Any of this. I mean, I've dated, but I've never actually been with someone. Not completely. Julian's expression softened with something like wonder. You're telling me you're a virgin? Is that a problem? No, he said quickly. No, Rachel, it's not a problem. I'm just surprised and honored that you'd tell me. I wanted you to know because, if we ever do become that kind of married, I need you to understand. I'm not some experienced woman who knows what she's doing. I'm just a girl from Queens who's scared out of her mind. Julian set down his wine glass and moved closer, but not touching. Rachel, look at me. She met his eyes, those gray depths that had seemed so cold at their first meeting, but now held unexpected warmth. You're not just a girl from Queens, Julian said. You're the bravest person I've ever met. You walked into an impossible situation with your eyes open and your head high. Whatever happens between us, that's who you are. Never forget it. Rachel felt tears burning her eyes. "I'm scared, Julian." "So am I," he admitted. "But maybe being scared together is better than being scared alone." He stood to leave, but Rachel caught his hand. "Stay, just for a while. I don't want to be alone tonight." Julian hesitated, then nodded. He moved to the armchair by the window, settling in with his wine. Rachel climbed into bed, pulling the covers up to her chin, and they talked through the night. About their childhoods, their dreams, their disappointments, and somewhere between midnight and dawn, something shifted between them. Something neither of them had planned for. Something that felt dangerously like the beginning of something real. 3 months into their marriage, Rachel found herself falling into a dangerous rhythm. Julian left for work before she woke, but there was always fresh coffee waiting and a note on the counter. Small things. "Meeting runs late tonight. Don't wait up." Or, "There's leftover Thai in the fridge." Once, simply, "You looked peaceful sleeping. Didn't want to wake you." Rachel had taken a new job at one of Julian's properties, managing a small art gallery in Chelsea. She'd insisted on earning her own money, and Julian had respected that, even seemed proud of it. Her mother's medical bills were paid in full. Her father had started a small consulting business, and Rachel's guilt was slowly being replaced by something more complicated. She was starting to care for her husband. It happened in moments she didn't expect, the way Julian's face softened when she told him about her day, how he'd started keeping her favorite tea in the house, the night she'd found him in his study at 2 a.m, staring at architectural plans, and he'd looked up with tired eyes and said, "Stay with me?" So they'd talked until dawn again, and somewhere in those quiet hours, Julian had taken her hand, just held it, his thumb tracing circles on her palm, while he explained his vision for revitalizing struggling neighborhoods. And Rachel had realized with startling clarity that she was in love with him. But Julian remained carefully distant, kind, attentive, respectful, and completely closed off whenever conversation drifted toward anything deeper than friendship. The breaking point came on a Thursday evening in late spring. Rachel arrived home early from the gallery to find an unfamiliar woman in their living room. She was stunning, with the kind of effortless elegance that money could never buy, wearing a white silk blouse and tailored pants that screamed designer. "Oh," the woman said, turning with a bright smile. "You must be Rachel." "I'm Catherine." The name hit Rachel like a physical blow. Catherine, the woman who had destroyed Julian's ability to trust, to love. "What are you doing here?" Rachel asked, her voice colder than she intended. "Julian and I were just catching up," Catherine said smoothly. "We have some business to discuss about a property in Brooklyn." "Business." Rachel repeated the word like it tasted bitter. Julian appeared from the kitchen, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He froze when he saw Rachel, guilt flashing across his face before he could mask it. "Rachel, you're home early." "Apparently." Rachel's eyes moved between them, seeing the comfortable way Catherine stood in their home, the wine Julian had poured for her. "I didn't realize we were having guests." Catherine stopped by unexpectedly, Julian said, setting down the glasses. "We were just about to discuss the Brooklyn project." "The one you told me was on hold?" Rachel challenged. Catherine's smile sharpened with interest, sensing the tension. "Julian, you didn't tell your wife about our meetings?" "Meetings?" Rachel turned to Julian. "Plural?" "Rachel, can we talk about this privately?" Julian's voice was tight. "Why?" "Catherine seems to know more about your business than I do, than your wife does." "It's not like that," Julian said. "Then what is it like?" Rachel felt something cracking inside her chest. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're having secret meetings with your ex while I play the dutiful wife at home." Catherine gathered her purse, clearly enjoying the drama. "I should go. Julian, we'll continue this tomorrow. Rachel, it was lovely meeting you." After Catherine left, the silence in the townhouse was suffocating. "How long has this been going on?" Rachel demanded. 3 weeks. She contacted me about a legitimate business opportunity." "And you didn't think to mention it?" Julian ran a hand through his hair, frustration evident in every line of his body. "Because I knew you'd react exactly like this. Like I'm your wife? Like I have a right to know when the woman who broke your heart is suddenly back in your life?" "You're not my wife," Julian said, the words escaping before he could stop them. "Not really. We have an arrangement, Rachel. That's all this is. The words landed like a slap. Rachel actually stepped back, feeling the air leave her lungs. Right, she said quietly. An arrangement. How could I forget? She turned toward the stairs, needing to escape before he could see her tears. Rachel, wait. I didn't mean it like that. Yes, you did. Rachel stopped on the stairs but didn't turn around. You've been so careful these past 3 months, Julian. Keeping me at arm's length, making sure I never forget this is just a business transaction. Well, message received. That's not fair. Fair? Rachel spun around, anger finally overtaking hurt. You want to talk about fair? I've been falling in love with you for weeks, and you've been having secret meetings with the woman who taught you not to trust anyone. You're right. This isn't fair at all. Julian stared at her, his face pale. Rachel, don't. She held up a hand. Don't say anything you don't mean. I can handle a lot of things, Julian. But I can't handle false hope. Not from you. She went to her room and locked the door, sliding down to sit with her back against it. On the other side, she could hear Julian's footsteps, could sense him standing there, separated by wood and pride, and walls they'd both built too high. I'm sorry, Julian's voice came through, rough with emotion. You're right, about all of it. I've been a coward. Rachel pressed her hand flat against the door, imagining she could feel his warmth through it. I'm scared, Rachel, Julian continued. Scared of what you make me feel. Scared of letting you in only to watch you realize you made a mistake. That I'm not worth the sacrifice you made. Julian, Rachel said softly, Catherine didn't just leave because the money was gone. She left because I wasn't enough. Not smart enough. Not interesting enough. Not worth staying for when things got hard. And I've spent 8 years building walls to make sure no one could do that to me again. Rachel stood and opened the door. Julian was leaning against the frame, his carefully constructed composure completely shattered. His eyes were red, his expression raw and vulnerable in a way she'd never seen. But you did it anyway, Julian said, his voice breaking. You walked right through every defense I had. You saw me, Rachel. The real me. And I'm terrified because I think I'm in love with you. And I don't know how to do this without destroying us both. Rachel reached up and cupped his face in her hands. Then we figure it out together. No more walls, no more secrets. We do this honestly or not at all. I don't want to lose you, Julian whispered. Then don't push me away. He kissed her then, and it was nothing like their wedding kiss. This was desperate, honest, full of 3 months of suppressed longing and fear. Rachel melted into him, her fingers threading through his hair as he backed her against the doorframe. I love you, Julian said against her lips. God help me, I love you. I love you too, Rachel breathed. They stumbled into her room, or maybe his. It didn't matter anymore. The careful boundaries they'd maintained dissolved as they explored this new territory together. Rachel's confession of her inexperience made Julian gentle, reverent, taking his time to worship every inch of her like she was something precious. And for the first time since their wedding day, Rachel felt truly married. Later, wrapped in Julian's arms in the dark, Rachel allowed herself to believe that maybe love could survive honesty, that maybe they could build something real from the ashes of their arrangement. She was wrong. The next morning, while Julian was in the shower, his phone buzzed with a text. Rachel glanced at it automatically and felt her world shatter. It was from Catherine. Last night was perfect. When can we meet again? This time without the wife drama. And beneath it, Julian's response from hours ago, sent while Rachel had been sleeping peacefully beside him. Tomorrow, same place. I'll handle Rachel. Rachel stared at the phone screen, her hands shaking so violently she nearly dropped it. The bathroom door opened and Julian emerged, towel wrapped around his waist, water still glistening on his skin. He was smiling, the careful mask he usually wore completely gone, replaced by something open and tender. Good morning, he said, leaning down to kiss her. Rachel turned her face away. Your phone was buzzing. Julian's smile faltered. Rachel? She handed him the phone without a word, watching his face drain of color as he read the messages. This isn't what it looks like, Julian said immediately. Really? Rachel's voice was eerily calm. Because it looks like you slept with me last night and then made plans to meet your ex-girlfriend. What am I missing? I didn't send that message. I swear to God, Rachel, I didn't send it. Your phone says otherwise. Julian grabbed his phone, scrolling frantically. Someone had access to my phone. Catherine must have taken it yesterday when she was here. That's your explanation? Rachel stood, pulling on her robe. Catherine somehow stole your phone, sent herself a message from your number, and then returned it without you noticing? I know how it sounds, but you have to believe me. After what happened between us last night, do you really think I'd do this? I don't know what to think anymore, Rachel said, moving toward the door. You've been meeting with her for weeks. Secret meetings you never mentioned to me. Because I knew you'd think exactly this, Julian said desperately. Rachel, please. Look at the timestamp on my message. 3 a.m. I was with you at 3 a.m. Rachel paused, looking at the phone again. He was right. The timestamp showed 3:17 a.m. She'd been awake at that time, wrapped in Julian's arms, listening to his heartbeat. That doesn't prove anything, Rachel said, but doubt had crept into her voice. You could have set it on a delay. Why would I do that? If I wanted to betray you, why would I tell you I love you first? Why would I give you ammunition to hurt me? Rachel wanted to believe him. Every instinct screamed that Julian wouldn't do this, not after the vulnerability he'd shown last night. But trust didn't come easy, and betrayal had a way of disguising itself as love. I need air, Rachel said, grabbing her clothes. I need to think. She dressed quickly and left the townhouse, ignoring Julian's pleas to wait. The morning air was crisp, the city just waking up around her. Rachel walked without direction, her mind spinning through every interaction with Catherine, every moment of the past 3 months. Her phone rang. It was her father. Rachel, honey, we need to talk about something. Dad, now's not a great time. It's about Richard Pierce. He came to see me yesterday. Rachel stopped walking. What did he want? He wanted to know if you were making Julian happy, if the marriage was working. A cold dread settled in Rachel's stomach. What did you tell him? I told him you two seemed genuinely happy, that it had turned into something real. Rachel, he wasn't pleased. He started talking about how Julian needs someone from his own world, someone who understands business. He mentioned Catherine's name. Catherine, Rachel repeated numbly. He said she's always been the right choice for Julian, that she's back and interested. Rachel, I think Richard is trying to sabotage your marriage. Rachel's mind reeled. Richard Pierce had arranged this marriage to give Julian a wife with good values, or so they'd claimed. But what if there was another reason? What if Richard had always planned to push Julian toward Catherine, using Rachel as a placeholder until Catherine was ready to return? Dad, I have to go. Rachel hung up and immediately called the one person who might have answers. Marcus, Julian's driver. She'd developed a friendly relationship with him over the past months, and he'd proven to be surprisingly forthcoming about Julian's schedule. Marcus, I need to know something. Did you drive Julian anywhere at 3 a.m. last night? 3 a.m? No, Miss Rachel. Mr. Pierce was home all night. I saw his car in the garage when I arrived at 6. What about his phone? Has anyone had access to it? Well, yesterday when Miss Catherine was visiting, I did see her using it. She said Mr. Pierce asked her to make a call for him while his hands were full. Is everything all right? Marcus, where did you drive Catherine after she left our house? To the Four Seasons. She's staying in the penthouse suite. On whose account? There was a pause. Mr. Richard Pierce's account, miss. Everything clicked into place. Richard Pierce was orchestrating this. He'd brought Catherine back, put her up at an expensive hotel, and was actively working to destroy Rachel and Julian's marriage. But why? Rachel returned to the townhouse to find Julian dressed and pacing the living room. He looked like he hadn't slept, his hair disheveled, his eyes wild. Rachel, thank God. I called Catherine. She admitted everything. Tell me. My father paid her to come back, paid her to destabilize our marriage. He never wanted this arrangement to work. He wanted me to realize I needed someone from my own world, someone who could manage the business and social obligations. He thought after a few months with you I'd be ready for Catherine again. Your father did this? He's been manipulating both of us from the start. Julian's hands were shaking. Rachel, I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you from him. Why would he do this? You're his son. Because to him, I'm an asset to be managed, not a person. He spent my whole life trying to mold me into his perfect heir. When I fell apart after Catherine left the first time, he saw weakness. This was his way of making me stronger, more cynical, more like him. Rachel sat down, her legs suddenly weak. We were never supposed to work, were we? This was all designed to fail. But we did work, Julian said fiercely, kneeling in front of her. Despite everything, despite all his manipulations, we found something real. That's what terrifies him. What do we do now? Julian took her hands. We fight. We choose each other over everyone and everything else. Rachel, I know we started this as an arrangement, but it became something more. It became a marriage, a real one. Your father will never accept that. Then I choose you over him, Julian said simply. I choose us. Rachel looked into his eyes, seeing the truth there, the commitment. But she also saw the cost. Julian would have to walk away from his father, from the company he'd built his entire identity around. Julian, I can't ask you to do that. You're not asking. I'm choosing. My father taught me that business is everything, that family is secondary to success. But you taught me something better. You taught me that love is worth more than empire. He'll destroy you. He'll destroy us both. Let him try. That afternoon, Rachel and Julian confronted Richard Pierce in his office on the 40th floor of Pierce Tower. The older man sat behind his massive desk, looking utterly unsurprised by their arrival. I wondered when you'd figure it out, Richard said calmly. Took longer than I expected, honestly. How could you do this? Julian demanded. I'm your son. Exactly. You're my son, which means you deserve better than some girl from Queens who'll drag you down to her level. Catherine is sophisticated, connected, ambitious. She's what you need. What I need? Julian's laugh was bitter. You paid the woman who destroyed me to come back and destroy me again. That's what you think I need? I paid her to remind you what real partnership looks like. Someone who understands our world. Our world? Rachel spoke for the first time, her voice cutting through the tension. Your world is built on manipulation and cruelty. Julian deserves better than that. Richard's eyes turned cold. And you think you're better? You, who married my son for money? I married him to save my mother's life, Rachel said. And yes, it started as a transaction. But it became real. We became real. That's what you can't stand, isn't it? That we found something you never could. Something that wasn't built on control and power. Touching, Richard said. But here's reality. Julian, if you stay with this girl, I'll cut you off. No company, no trust fund, no inheritance. You'll have nothing. Then I'll have nothing, Julian said. But I'll have Rachel. That's enough. Richard stood, his face reddening. You're throwing away everything I built for you. Everything I planned. No, Dad. I'm choosing the life you never gave me permission to want. One where I matter more than the Pierce name. Get out, Richard said coldly. Both of you. And don't come back. Julian took Rachel's hand and they walked out of the office together. In the elevator, surrounded by chrome and glass and the trappings of wealth Julian was abandoning, Rachel felt tears streaming down her face. What have we done? She whispered. Julian pulled her close. We chose each other. Whatever comes next, we face it together. But as the elevator descended, Rachel couldn't shake the feeling that Richard Pierce wasn't finished with them yet. Men like him didn't accept defeat. They accepted revenge. 2 weeks after their confrontation with Richard Pierce, Rachel stood in the small apartment in Queens where everything had started. The townhouse was gone, seized by Richard through legal technicalities Julian hadn't seen coming. The company was gone, Julian's name stripped from every building and contract. Even the car and driver were memories now. They were starting over with nothing but each other. Julian emerged from the bedroom, wearing jeans and a t-shirt, looking more like the man he might have been without his father's influence. He'd taken a job with a small architectural firm, designing affordable housing. The pay was a fraction of what he'd made before, but his eyes held something they hadn't in the townhouse. Peace. Your mom called, Julian said, holding up Rachel's phone. She wants us to come for dinner tonight. Rachel smiled, still getting used to this version of their life. Her mother had recovered fully. Her father's business was stable, and they'd all moved forward. But Richard Pierce's shadow still loomed large. Julian, we need to talk about something, Rachel said, her voice serious. He sat beside her on the worn couch, taking her hand. What's wrong? Catherine came to see me yesterday, At the gallery, Julian's entire body tensed. What did she want? She wanted to tell me the truth. The whole truth. Rachel took a deep breath. Your father's planning something bigger. He's not just cutting you off, Julian. He's actively destroying you. He's using his connections to blacklist you from major firms, spreading rumors that you're unstable, unreliable. I can handle that. We'll get through it. There's more. Rachel's voice cracked. He's going after my family too. He's using his influence to shut down my father's consulting business. He's already contacted 3 of his biggest clients and convinced them to drop their contracts. Julian stood abruptly, rage transforming his features. That bastard. This is between him and me. Your family has nothing to do with this. To him, they have everything to do with it. He's showing you what it costs to choose me. Then he's failed, because I'm not changing my mind. Rachel stood, moving to face him. Julian, Catherine came with a message. She said if we get the marriage annulled, if you agree to court her publicly, your father will stop. He'll restore everything, your position, your accounts, everything, and he'll leave my family alone. The silence that followed was deafening. No, Julian said finally. Absolutely not. Julian, listen to me. No, Rachel. I don't care what he threatens. I don't care if we live in a cardboard box under a bridge. I'm not leaving you. He's going to destroy my parents, Rachel said, tears streaming down her face. Everything they've worked for, everything they've sacrificed. My father is 60 years old, Julian. He can't start over again. We'll find another way. There is no other way. I've thought about this for 2 days straight. Your father wins because he's willing to hurt innocent people to get what he wants. He'll never stop, Julian. Never. So what are you saying? Julian's voice was hollow. I'm saying maybe we were wrong. Maybe love isn't enough when it destroys everyone around us. Julian grabbed her shoulders gently. Don't do this. Don't let him win. He's already won, Rachel whispered. The moment he decided to go after my family, he won. Because I can't live with myself knowing they're suffering because of me. Because of us, Julian corrected. This isn't your burden alone. But the solution is mine to make. Rachel reached up and touched his face, memorizing every detail. I love you, Julian Pierce, more than I ever thought possible, but I love my family too, and I can't sacrifice them for my own happiness. Rachel, please. We'll figure something else out. There's nothing to figure out. Your father made the terms very clear. She pulled away from him, walking to the window. Tomorrow I'm going to file for annulment. I'm going to tell anyone who asks that we made a mistake, that the arrangement never evolved into anything real. That's a lie. It's the lie that saves everyone I love. Rachel turned to face him, her heart breaking with every word, including you. Julian, if you stay with me, your father will make sure you never work again. He'll blacklist you from every firm, every project. You'll spend your life fighting him instead of building the things you're meant to create. I don't care about the buildings, but I do. I care about the man you are when you're designing spaces for people who need them. I care about the architect who stayed up all night talking about revitalizing neighborhoods. That man deserves a chance to change the world, and he can't do it while fighting a war with his father. Julian sank onto the couch, his head in his hands. This is what he wanted all along, to prove that love makes you weak, that it's better to stay emotionally safe. Maybe he's right, Rachel said softly. Maybe we were fools to think we could have a fairy tale ending. We're not a fairy tale. We're real. That's what makes this matter. Rachel sat beside him, taking his hand one last time. Then let's be real about this. Let's admit that sometimes love means letting go. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away. I can't lose you. Julian's voice broke completely. Rachel, you're the only person who ever saw me. The real me. Not the heir or the businessman or the disappointment. Just me. And you'll always be that person. My husband, in the ways that matter. But Julian, we have to stop fighting a battle we can't win. They held each other on that couch for hours, crying, talking, memorizing the weight of each other's presence. When dawn broke over Queens, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold, they both knew what had to happen. Julian kissed her one last time at the door, soft and tender and heartbreaking. I love you, he whispered against her lips. I will love you for the rest of my life, Rachel Hartwell. And I love you, she replied. In this life and whatever comes after. Then he walked away. and Rachel closed the door on the only man she would ever truly love. 3 months later, Rachel stood in her mother's kitchen, helping prepare Thanksgiving dinner. The familiar motions were soothing: peeling potatoes, chopping vegetables, listening to her parents laugh together in the living room. Her father's business had stabilized, mysteriously finding new clients that kept him busy. Rachel suspected Richard Pierce's influence, though she'd never confirmed it. She hadn't seen or spoken to Julian since the annulment was finalized. She'd heard through mutual acquaintances that he'd moved to Boston, working with a progressive architecture firm on groundbreaking affordable housing projects. There were photos online of him at a charity gala with Catherine on his arm, both of them smiling for the cameras. Rachel told herself she was happy for him. Told herself the ache in her chest would fade eventually. Her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Turn on Channel 7. Now." Frowning, Rachel wiped her hands and went to the living room, switching on the television. A press conference was in progress. At the podium stood Julian Pierce, looking sharp in a dark suit but with something fierce in his expression. "Thank you all for coming," Julian said to the assembled reporters. "I have an announcement to make regarding Pierce Development and my father, Richard Pierce." Rachel's mother appeared beside her. "Honey, isn't that your Julian?" "He's not my Julian anymore, Mom." On screen, Julian continued. "For the past 3 months, I've been working with federal investigators to expose corruption within Pierce Development. My father has been engaged in illegal zoning manipulation, bribery of city officials, and fraud in connection with multiple development projects. Today, those charges were filed formally." The press room erupted with questions. Julian raised a hand for silence. "I'm also here to announce the formation of Hartwell Pierce Design, a new firm dedicated to ethical development and affordable housing. The Hartwell name comes from my wife, Rachel Hartwell Pierce, who taught me that integrity matters more than wealth." Rachel's knees went weak. "What is he doing?" "I know many of you believe Rachel and I divorced," Julian continued, looking directly into the camera as if he could see Rachel through it. "That was a story we told to protect her from my father's retaliation while I gathered evidence against him. The truth is, Rachel is my wife in every way that matters. She is my conscience, my courage, and my reason for fighting this battle." Tears streamed down Rachel's face. "Rachel, if you're watching this, I need you to know something. You were right that day. Sometimes love means walking away, but sometimes it means walking straight into the fire and refusing to let go. I choose you, Rachel. I will always choose you, and I hope you'll choose me again." The press conference descended into chaos, but Julian was already leaving the podium. Rachel's phone rang immediately. It was Marcus. "Miss Rachel, Mr. Pierce instructed me to be outside your parents' house. He's on his way. Should I wait?" Rachel looked at her mother, who was crying and smiling at the same time. "Go," her mother said. "Go to your husband." Rachel was out the door before Marcus could respond, running down the street in her jeans and flower-covered sweater. Halfway down the block, she saw him. Julian, climbing out of a taxi, looking up the street until their eyes met. They ran toward each other, meeting in the middle of the street like something from a movie. Julian caught her up in his arms, spinning her around as she wrapped herself around him. "You're insane," Rachel said between kisses. "You took down your own father. He took down himself. I just made sure he couldn't hurt anyone else." Julian set her down, but kept his arms locked around her. "Rachel, I meant what I said. I choose you. Today, tomorrow, for the rest of our lives. Your father will go to prison. Yes. And that's justice. Not revenge, just consequence. The company is gone. Good. We'll build something better. Something that actually helps people." Rachel pulled back to look at him. This man who had started as a stranger, become her husband through arrangement, and transformed into her partner through choice. "Hartwell Pierce Design?" she asked with a smile. "Your name first, always. You're the one who taught me what matters." "I love you," Rachel said. "God help us both, but I love you completely." "Then marry me again," Julian said. "For real this time. No arrangements, no conditions. Just us and a promise to choose each other every single day. We're already married. Then marry me again anyway. I want to stand in front of everyone we love and tell the world that you're mine and I'm yours." Rachel laughed through her tears. "You're absolutely ridiculous. Is that a yes?" "That's a yes to everything. To you, to us, to whatever insane future we're building together." Julian kissed her again, and around them, the neighborhood began to emerge. Rachel's parents on the porch crying, neighbors clapping from their windows, even Marcus standing by the car with tears in his eyes. They had lost everything and gained something better. They had walked through fire and come out forged into something unbreakable. They had learned that love wasn't about grand gestures or perfect beginnings. It was about choosing each other, again and again, even when the world demanded otherwise, especially then. 6 months later, Rachel and Julian stood in a small garden behind a community center Julian had designed. Their second wedding was nothing like the first. No city hall efficiency, no business-like vows. This time, surrounded by family and friends they'd helped along the way, they made promises they'd already kept. Rachel wore a simple white dress she'd found at a vintage shop. Julian wore the same suit he'd worn to their first dinner, the one that had cost more than her rent. They were a study in contrasts, a fusion of two worlds that had learned to become one. "I promise to choose you," Julian said, his voice steady and sure. "In poverty and wealth, in struggle and triumph, in every single moment of every single day." "I promise to see you," Rachel replied. "Not what the world expects you to be, but who you truly are, and to remind you of that truth whenever you forget." When they kissed, it was to the sound of cheering and the knowledge that they had earned this moment through sacrifice and courage and unwavering faith in each other. Later, as they danced under string lights in the garden, Rachel rested her head against Julian's chest and smiled. "No regrets?" Julian murmured. "Not a single one. Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. They brought us here." Julian held her tighter, and in the warmth of his arms, Rachel understood the truth they'd learned the hardest way possible. Love wasn't a fairy tale, it was a choice, made over and over even when every logical reason said to walk away. And when you found someone worth fighting for, someone worth rebuilding your entire world beside, you held on with everything you had, no matter what it cost, no matter what it took. You held on. The end.